Welcome back to Buck Living, a channel all about making money. I'm very curious to see what's going to happen next year in 2024 when it comes to Uber and Lyft. I've done a ton of Uber and Lyft videos on this channel, and I will say that this video is going to be more fireside chat style videos. Sometimes I have videos that are very structured with points and all this kind of stuff and jump cut editing. This is going to be kind of me talking off the cusp because I did a couple videos about this and I've talked about it a little bit here and there, and that is this. When it comes to Uber and Lyft, I'm predicting that 2024 is going to be a massive year when it comes to the companies. I've already done a video about that saying, trust me, 2024 is going to be a big year when it comes to ride sharing. But the biggest thing about this that I'm actually I'm going to be honest, I'm a bit worried is the fact that there's going to be, I think, more drivers than ever on the road. What is going to happen when it comes to Uber and Lyft when there's too many drivers on the road? I genuinely don't know, right? I mean, it's tough to say. But my best guess is it's not going to be good. I just posted a video yesterday. I'll post it in the description below of 15 different on-demand jobs, flexible jobs, gig economy jobs, similar to Uber and Lyft, right? And that video, by the way, was exactly an hour long, by the way. Exactly an hour long. There was a ton of research that went into it. Definitely suggest watching it. And I wanted to post that video because I'm like, you know what? I don't know if Uber and Lyft is going to be as good. Well, I'll touch upon that. Is going to be as good next year. Now, granted, there are some drivers saying, well, Mark, what do you mean? Lyft and Uber is already bad. What are you talking about? But here's the thing. 75% of drivers I've interviewed hate Lyft and Uber. 25% love it. And I do think there is an asterisk on that. I'll do a video about this in the future that I have noticed. I mean, if you think about it, I have noticed that if you hate driving for Lyft and Uber, I think just psychologically speaking or logistically speaking, you're probably more likely to go to YouTube, type in a comment of oh, F Lyft and Uber, they're the worst companies ever. They turn their drivers into slaves, et cetera, et cetera. If you like it, I feel like you're less likely to go to YouTube and type in, oh, I love Lyft and Uber, right? Because what I've noticed is more negative, and this is very relevant for this video, by the way, more negative attention about Lyft and Uber, I find is online. That I get so many negative comments online in terms of people hating Lyft and Uber. But I'd say most of the drivers I talk to in person love it. So I think there is that disconnect, right? If you go to a restaurant and then it's really, really good, you're probably not thinking anything of it. If you go to a restaurant and it's horrible, you're probably going to be like, oh, I'm definitely leaving a 1-star Yelp review, right? Now, when it comes to this kind of wishy-washy nature of Lyft and Uber that a lot of drivers hate it, a lot of drivers love it. Drivers, of course, are making less money than they were before, although I've met drivers who are making good money. Whether you hate it or love it, I think one thing that I'm really worried about is that hate or love it, I think it's going to get worse next year. If you hate it, you're probably going to hate it more. If you love it, you may start to love it a little bit less, right? Because the big benefits of Lyft and Uber, think about it. With the pros and cons, I've done a million videos about the pros and cons of Lyft and Uber. The big ones for people, one, the flexible schedule. I think I could probably just stop there. But the flexible schedule is the biggest thing for people. The fact that you can turn on the app whenever you want, turn it off whenever you want. It's completely flexible. Whether you want to do it full-time and do it in such a way that you have time to, you can spend more time with your kids, with your family. You have other time for other entrepreneurial pursuits. Like I've talked before about how I was driving for Lyft and Uber when it comes to me, working on music and YouTube and everything, right? So you have more time to do the things that you want to focus on. But also, if say you have a full-time job, Lyft and Uber is let's be honest, the easiest and the best part-time job. Because say if it's a Friday night and you have no work going on, you can drive. If say you have a random schedule, right? You could drive in the pockets that you don't have anything going on and make extra money. If you want to put something away for savings, save up for a vacation, whatever, right? Whatever the case is. The second thing is instant cash outs. I genuinely think this is less of a pro for a lot of people. I mean, I think it's amazing, right? In case you don't know, most jobs pay bi-weekly or every 2 weeks. YouTube pays once a month, which kind of stinks. So I have to get good at managing because, YouTube pays you every 21st or 22nd of the month. I don't know why the 21st is kind of random, but you get paid once a month by YouTube. But with Lyft and Uber, not only is it automatic cash outs or payments every week, so it's weekly pay, but also you have instant cash outs if you want to do it right then and there, that you can drive in a day, make $100, hit a button, it's instantly in your bank account. I think that's a big, at least to me, that's always been a big selling point. I don't think people care as much. The third one, which I think is also kind of similar to this, although I think a lot of people overlook it, is the fact that when it comes to driving, you never have an issue with getting hours. And this is where now comes kind of things come full circle for this video. And I've used this example before. When I used to be a bartender, there were people saying, hey, to my boss or my manager, being like, hey, is there any more hours I can get? I need more money. And my boss would be like, no, sorry, we're booked. We have no more hours to give you. With Lyft and Uber, you really never have to worry about there being enough hours to drive. You can always drive. Now, yes, depending city to city, state to state, it's different when it comes to the legal rules and the legislation. It does depend, but typically there is some cutoffs for safety reasons because they don't want you driving 20 hours straight because obviously like drowsy driving is super dangerous. Drowsy driving accident happens every 30 seconds, right? And I'm a big advocate of this. Never drive if you're tired. I know I've done it. I know we've probably all done it, but like they've done studies and not advocating for either, but drowsy driving is actually worse than drunk driving. So just want to say that as a quick side note. But, for most places, usually like a cap on like 12 to 16 hours, being like, okay, after 12 hours, you can't drive more than 12 hours in a 24-hour period or whatever. But if you think about it, that's still a lot of hours, right? Now, with all this being said, these pros of Lyft and Uber, I also say a fourth one might as well for this video, and that's a very low barrier to entry. It's not like, and I've said this before, I've seen accounting jobs that pay $20 an hour, but you need an accounting degree. You need to go to a 4-year university and get an accounting degree. But with Lyft and Uber, you could just have a driver's license, have a car, or if you don't have one, you can rent one, right? So you really just need a driver's license, and you can make the same exact money an accountant would make, or if anything, probably more. Now, with all this being said, the biggest issue I think for next year is that with more drivers being on the road, it compromises a few of those big points. But I think, in my opinion, the one biggest pro is the flexible schedule. People love the fact, like I just said earlier, I think it's 90% of people who join Lyft and Uber like the flexibility. If you think about it, if there's going to be too many drivers on the road, it could be possible, I might even say probable, that you could pull up the app, go to drive, because you're like, hey, you know what? I feel like staying in on this, or not staying in, but I don't feel like going out on a Friday night. I want to, save money, give my liver a break for Friday night. I'm going to go out and drive. And next you turn on the app and you hit the button to start, and it says, sorry, too many drivers on the road. Try again in an hour. You might be like, wait a minute, but it's Lyft and Uber. Like, I can drive anytime I want. And if you think about it, that even if that happened once, you're probably always going to think in the back of your head, is that going to happen again? Is that going to happen again? Is that going to happen again? And so the flexibility aspect, the biggest benefit for Lyft and Uber, might go out the window. And then you have this odd kind of paradox where I could see, and again, this is kind of going into like Murphy's Law territory, but I think it's always important to look out just in case. It then could get to the point, though, if you think about it, where you're like, all right, well, it's this odd paradox where the peak times to drive, 7 to 9 a.m., the morning commutes, 5 to 7 p.m., the evening commutes, Friday and Saturday nights, say 9 p.m. to 2 a.m., even though those are the best times to drive, that's probably when there's going to be the most drivers on the road, right? And so if you think about the times that are worse to drive, the non-peak hours are probably going to be the times that's easiest to drive. But I mean, let's be honest. If you're driving for Uber and Lyft and you want to make good money, you got to hit the peak hours, right? The non-peak hours, unless you have some really good bonus going on during that time, unless you have some unique stipulation, you want to drive during the peak hours. And I think that's what worries me, is it will start to remove the flexibility nature of Lyft and Uber, which makes me question how many drivers are going to stick around. Now, granted, we are talking about Murphy's Law territory here, but I don't know. I've seen more and more reports of more people signing up for Lyft and Uber because of the economy. As we all know, the amount of money people are making is about the same, but expenses, bills, food even, gas. Gas actually fluctuates. Gas is not too bad right now, at least at the time of this video. I feel like it's not horrible, at least compared to normal. But food, it is crazy to see how much more expensive things have gotten. Even, drinks now, which I know obviously you don't need to drink, right? But like even drinks now, I went out last night actually, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to grab, a beer or whatever, $15 for like a Lagunitas, right? IPA. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. $15 for like a beer. And granted, yeah, I'm in LA, but even still, I was also out, this is like a couple weeks ago, I was out with one of my friends. I'm like, all right, I'll buy you a shot. He bought me around like a couple weeks prior to that. So I was like, all right, I'll return the favor. He wanted to do a shot. I was like, all right, just give me a shot of like your cheapest vodka. Like, I was like, just vodka to me is vodka. So I'm like, just whatever your typical well vodka is. 2 shots of vodka came to $40. It was $20 a shot. And I was like, are you joking? Like for $20, I could get like a really nice craft cocktail at a nice bar with all these unique things in it, and like kind of paying a little bit for the experience of seeing a mixologist. But I'm getting some like, I think it was like New Amsterdam vodka. It was $20 a shot. And I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, but it's absurd, right? So things are getting more expensive, right? I'm going on a side tangent, but things are getting more expensive, right? And so that's why a lot of people now are starting to drive for Lyft and Uber and signing up to drive for Lyft and Uber. And that's what worries me for next year. I mean, we'll have to see, but I don't think Lyft and Uber's ever had to deal with the situation of there being too many drivers on the road where they now have to kind of figure out who to give rides to. Because let's be honest, let's say that alert didn't happen. And I'm going to be honest, we'll see. I don't think Lyft and Uber would ever say, hey, there's too many drivers on the road, come back next time, unless it was completely flooded. I think what would happen is almost be as opposed to a in your face thing of being like, hey, there's too many drivers on the road, you might not get a ride. I think it would be more passive where you hit the button, you'd be there, you'd be waiting, and you maybe get 1 to 2 rides an hour. That happened to me in Boston. Granted, this was years ago when I was driving, that Lyft and Uber maybe wasn't as popular. It was kind of like a non-peak hour. There also wasn't that many drivers on the road. But what's interesting is I've actually interviewed some drivers here in LA, for example, and have told me like, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, on a Friday night, it's getting a little harder to get rides because there's a lot of people driving now. So it becomes not cutthroat because obviously they're like, it's tricky because, it pops up on the app. And in case you don't know, you can kind of see like in advance how much how much you can get paid and everything. Let's say it pops up and you're like, oh, wow, this actually isn't that high paying of a ride. You cancel it. Then 5 minutes go by, 10 minutes go by, and you're like, shoot, I'm not getting anything. And then you get almost desperate where I've had some drivers tell me like, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, like it's a dead night. I'm just taking what I can get. If it's a $5 ride, $5 is better than me just sitting in my car and not doing anything and not driving at all. And I could see these problems getting way more amplified, and it kind of almost, and this is again going very Murphy's Law, but very much so down the road. Like I said and stressed in this video, the biggest point of driving for Lyft and Uber is the flexibility. And I think that biggest point, I can see being heavily compromised next year. The instant cash outs, you could probably still do them, right? The low barrier to entry is always going to be there. But the other one that I've talked about too is the fact that like I said, when it comes to the bartending situation, you never have to worry about getting enough hours to drive. If let's say you have a bill that you have to pay, you're like, shoot, I have to pay this in 3 days or else I get a massive fine, and you just go all out for the next 3 days to drive, you make enough money to pay the bill, well, you can definitely do that. However, if let's say there's not enough hours for you, you may start to think, oh shoot, I thought that I could just turn on the app and just drive. Now there's not enough hours for me, et cetera, et cetera. So I know going down to like Murphy's Law territory, I know I'm kind of like talking about a bunch of different points in this video, but I'm just kind of speaking my mind that I think this could actually be a big moment for Lyft and Uber, and I'd say it in a negative way, that the flexibility that we all know and love when it comes to driving, and let's be honest, that is the best benefit, could go away. Now, granted, this is all speculation, right? Let me know everything in the comments, but all I'm going to say is this. With Uber and Lyft, with driving for Uber and Lyft, with becoming an Uber driver and a Lyft driver, with that becoming significantly more popular, and with more people signing up, with the economy getting worse, and more people looking to ride sharing as a great secondary income or side job or even third job or whatever, the more drivers that are going to be on the road, I'm going to be honest, it's only going to equal a bigger mess.